We are in the last portion of our Women's Empowerment Seminar. Yes, give yourselves a round of applause. We had What's in Your Wallet, Superwoman Syndrome, and Managing Personal Summers. Now we are going to have an opportunity just to be one-on-one, a little transparent, not too transparent because we are in the house of the Lord, so we want to be decent and in order. But we want to be able to commune with you guys, converse with you guys, and answer any questions that you may have about today's seminar, or that may be something that you just have on your heart that you want to share or you want to be asked. Now, these questions are anonymous, so you can either post them to and it'll probably be easier for you to do it this way. On the agenda that we gave you for breakfast, there's a website down at the bottom. Go to that website, post your question, and it will be sent directly to our facilitator for our Q&A portion. And of course, it will be anonymous and your question will be answered. If you're having issues with the website, we will have our serve team come down and issue you or hand you an index card. That's a little bit easier for you. So just raise your hand and I'll make sure that you guys get one. Are you guys excited and ready? Are you guys having a great time? Has this been an amazing seminar for you on Saturday morning? I'm glad. We wanted to make sure that you guys got everything that you absolutely needed, and you'll be leaving here uplifted, renewed, empowered, and restored. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and introduce our panelists for our Q&A portion. We have Brittany Williams. We have Evangelist Shelley Walker. We have Stacia Williams. We have Bobby Joe Williams, and we have Tanisha Vaughn. These women of God are proficient in their field of choice. They are very professional, but not only that, they are gifted and highly favored. Can we say amen for them? Amen. Awesome. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us. You are now in the hands of Minister Jen.
Can I get some like suspense music? I'm just playing. Hey, y'all swung with these questions. So here we go, panel. Y'all ready? All right, here we go. First question. As Christian women, is it okay to still keep your circle small? It just seems like we use the term sister too loosely. That is the question. I'm going to say it again. As Christian women, is it okay to still keep your circle small? It just seems like we use the term sister too loosely.
Wow, I can't believe that was the first question. So this morning I got up and the Holy Spirit imparted into me something, and I wasn't quite sure where it was coming from, and all he would tell me is, it's the answer. And I'm like, the answer to what? And he said, it's an answer to a question that's going to happen today, and you'll know when it happens. Yeah, so here we go. So the first part of the question, is it okay to keep your circle small? Absolutely. It is absolutely okay to keep your circle small. It is important who you surround yourself with. And I am a walking testimony that without the few people in my circle who know who they are right now, I probably would not be sitting in this chair. I would be depressed and broken and not letting God use me. However, for the second part of the question, here's the answer, what God imparted in me today. Today he brought me, and I'm still getting really good with my Bible, so don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it's Romans 14:13. And it says that we will no longer judge one another, but instead we will choose not to cause another brother or sister to fall. Now, there have been times in my life when, as a Christian woman, other Christian women have said or done things that have made me feel like I wasn't good enough, I didn't belong, or I shouldn't be in the environment that I was in. There have been times where I have not come to church because I felt like someone didn't like me. So I think it's important as Christian women that we learned that just because you're not a part of my immediate circle doesn't mean that I can't love you. There is enough space for all of us to share our gifts with God. And just because I'm not your cup of tea doesn't mean we can't collaborate. Just because I'm not your cup of tea doesn't mean that we can't build something together. So we have to understand that although your circle is small, we really need to uplift and encourage each other and really try hard not to have other people stumble.
Anybody else?
I think to answer the question, I use the term sis as a term of endearment. I don't necessarily use it as a word that I'm going to say that that's my sister. I do have a small circle of people that I call my sisters, and those are my secret keepers. Those are my prayer warriors. Those are the people that I confide in. But I think it comes from understanding who you are as a woman in the purest form. That no, not everybody is your friend, and not everybody is your assignment. So if you're focused on going back to the Superwoman syndrome, trying to save everybody, then yeah, you're going to be overwhelmed with trying to people please. You don't have to do that. Like if you are conscious of like who God has sent you, and you pray intentionally for your community of people, there will be no confusion as to who is supposed to be in your circle.
All right. Next question. I'm going to read both of these because they're both asking kind of the same thing. So here we go. What self-care steps can women caring for multiple family members take without guilt? What self-care steps can women caring for multiple family members take without guilt? And then I'm going to read the other question. It says, how do you self-care when you have to work, take care of disability parents, be a wife, mother, and not enough time in the day? So it kind of goes hand in hand.
My answer, well, the first thing that comes to mind, if you don't self-care, you're not being good at any of those. You have to take care of, you have to fill your own cup. So I mentioned earlier, I'm the mother of 5 children. Those kids span from 23 years young to 5 years young. I also am a business owner, so I am leading a team during the day. I also am a wife. I'm all of these things. I wear all of these hats. And one day I took the time to realize that I literally, from the time I drop my kids off to school, but from the time that I drop the last one off to the office, that's the time that I have in the morning. And then in the afternoon, driving home from the office, that's the time that I have for myself. So I am very intentional with that time. But I work with women all the time that I ask them questions. So what's your goals? What's your dreams? Like you've, of course, some of them been very responsible. You say, what are you going to do next? And they look at me and they say, I don't know. They don't know because they've spent so much time, like as women we do, pouring into everybody else, taking care of everyone else, that we don't take a moment, stop and pause, or we feel guilty for going to get our hair done. We feel guilty from being away from the kids. We feel guilty for saying no. Me personally, I have no problem saying no because no is not a negative word. It is a word of intention. So I think that to answer the question, how do you self-care? How do you manage all those things? First of all, time management. Time management is very important. And then you learn, give yourself grace. We can't do everything. And it's okay that we can't do everything. But if we focus on the few things, being great at a few things, we can't be great at everything. So focus on those few things that we're great at, and then be mindful, again, of filling your own cup, whatever that looks like. You like to eat? Go out to eat. Take yourself out to eat. If you like to shop, buy yourself something here and there. Fill your own cup first because you can't pour out what you don't have to pour.
I think that question probably stemmed from my session because I talked about who takes care of the caretaker. And to answer the second part of the question was, how do I do all this while taking care of an aging and disabled parent? One of the things that I suggested in my session is to sit down and have a family meeting. If you don't have an extended family, get a nurse that you can come into the home or find an agency that can help you facilitate a care plan for your aging parent so that it's not all falling on you. You have to find the word balance and fit that in your life. Because the thing is you cannot take care of someone if you're not taking care of yourself. And the thing is that I said in my session was, if you are a caretaker and you're depleting your energy and your strength to giving it all to them, then you're next in line to have to be taken care of. So make sure that you are taking care of you, meaning you have to be, like my sister said, intentional about taking the time for yourself. And that is not going to get your hair and your nails done. That is good away time. But being intentional means like resting, finding someone else to do it, delegating tasks, saying no, setting boundaries, and being clear on those. Because again, if you don't do it, somebody else will. And you have to let go of the control, because that's all it is. You want to control it all. You don't want to ask for help because you think to yourself, like me, that if I have to ask you more than once, then I don't want to have to ask anybody to do it. Or if I get you to do it, you don't do it right, and I'm going to be upset. Stop trying to control the outcome and release it, and understand that God has given you community and people. Use those people accordingly to support you and take that stuff off of your plate.
And from a healthcare perspective, there is a thing called respite care. So if you are actively caring for a dying parent or a disabled parent, there are organizations, group homes, nursing homes that will do what's called respite care. And that simply means that you make a contract with them where your insurance will pay them what they would normally pay you or whoever's caring for the individual to keep them for anywhere from 2 days to a week. As the area director of business development for Mission Health, I oversee the clinical acuity of admissions for 5 nursing homes. And we do this for families all the time. Like, they'll want to just take a break, and let's say a husband and wife is caring for a dying mom. We'll take that patient into our nursing home for just 4 days while they fly somewhere for the weekend and refill their cup, and then they come right back and get their loved one. So don't forget that there are also healthcare resources out there for those of you who are caring for loved ones.
All right, look at your neighbor and say, it's about to take a turn. It is, it is. Here we go. How do you learn to keep quiet when arguing with your spouse and you know he wrong? I'm gonna read it again. For clarity purposes. How do you learn to keep quiet when arguing with your spouse and you know he's wrong?
I'm looking around. I think I'm the oldest one sitting in this chair. In 28 years of marriage, praise God. How y'all doing, by the way? Y'all all right? I'm enjoying this. I can honestly tell you the first 5 years of marriage, I did not master that. It takes time to develop that skill. And you have to allow the Lord to quiet you. He deserves the right to have an opinion. And he also deserves the right to have feelings about whatever has transpired. It may not agree with where you are, but that's how he feels. We are obligated to listen. At least listen and hear him out. Sometimes I discovered when he's talking and he's hearing himself, he actually hears how stupid he really does sound. Say it again. Sometimes you need to hear it out loud, your thoughts, and be like, what? And he'll say, you know what, babe, you right. End of conversation. So let him express himself, ladies. That's okay. We're not right on everything. And we're not justified in holding on to anger and resentment and unresolved issues just because we feel like it. We're not justified to do that. when God teaches us something else, which is patience and kindness and gentleness, long suffering, meekness, love, peace, right? When he's teaching us that, we are obligated then to at least hear him out. That's what love does, right? And then forgive, even if he turns out to be wrong, which is probably 75% of the time. Especially when he's trying to tell me how I feel about something. Amen? Praise the Lord, church. All right. But I have discovered that he is right, too, on a lot of things, right? And then I'm obligated to say, you know what, baby, you right. And that be the end of the discussion, right? But that's my point of view. Let love rule the day for you. Let love rule the day.
Anybody else?
So I'll say this. My husband left, so I can talk about him. No, I'm just kidding. I will say, in my experience within my own marriage, but also when I'm doing relationship therapy with couples that come into care, I tell them all the time, with an activity, there's something called yielding to win, right? If we don't care who gets the credit for I told you so, then we can yield to win. There has to be a moment of compromise and understanding, right? That's what the Bible talks about. In all our ways, get an understanding. Instead of trying to be right all the time, yield so you can hear what your partner is saying to you. Because even though you might feel like they're wrong and you're right, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. What is my partner trying to communicate to me? Because there's a need under there. And once we figure out that need, then we can come to a compromise. But if we're just having a yelling match and we compete with who can go higher and higher, then we have to yield to win. So I have an activity. Y'all can use this. Get a safe word. When you feel triggered, you're upset, your partner's upset, find a word. I don't care if it's pineapple, oranges, Bible, whatever it is. Agree on this safe word. Whoever yells out the safe word first, we got to pause and take a second. And we have to agree to come back and talk about it when we're both in a safe space. Because honestly, when you're arguing with each other, nobody's being heard anyway. So decide together when we're coming back to talk about it, right? When you come back to talk about it, you have a symbol to represent who has the floor. That could be the water bottle, it could be the phone, whatever it is. But whoever has the floor, the other person has to be quiet and let the other person speak. And you can put a time limit on it if you want to, but the purpose of that is so we can hear each other, because that is the purest form of communication. It's literally just to listen and find out what the need is under the problem. Once we get to the root of it, we can figure it out.
I agree, and I'm not married, but also in relationship work, we do a lot of asking of questions. The first question I would ask is, does this need to be said? Yeah. 2, does it need to be said right now? Yeah. 3, does it need to be said by me? I think a lot of times we become very quick to just get our opinion out there, to say the things that are on our heart so we can feel heard and so that we are seen. But by asking those questions, it allows us to step back. This may not be the right time. This may need to be said, but maybe I'm not the right person to say it, and maybe I can wait for another time or have it be done by someone else.
Somebody say, here we go again. How do you balance being a superwoman while being married to a Clark Kent? Hold on. And she signed it, no cape. I'm going to read it again. How do you balance being a superwoman while being married to a Clark Kent? Signed, no cape.
Okay, so that came from my session. What did I say? Superwoman is not real. She's a fictional character. So first of all, take that expectation and unrealistic expectation off of yourself. I am married to a person that's like Clark Kent. My husband is in the business side of things, but he's also very busy within ministry. So he carries a lot, right? So we're both super busy. What you have to do is find the balance to make it work. It's not easy when you're both on the go. And let me add, we have a toddler. And you know, if you know my turn-up queen, she's busy, right? So we have to find the balance between what's most important and be intentional about making time for each other. And that's not easy to do. But having a conversation about, okay, what are our needs? What do we have to do? What do we have to do to get some time in together? Have a date night, but having an assigned date night, which is Friday night for us, which is our family date night. We have to make time for each other, right? But take that unrealistic expectation for you to be Superwoman and for him to be Clark Kent off, because they're both fictional characters. What can I do in this season with what I have? Because seasons will change, right? There will come a time where you're not as busy, he's not as busy, but you have to keep up with what you have for each other and be intentional about making that relationship work. So I hope that was helpful.
Okay. How do we get African American people to go to therapy when we have been taught or raised to either hold it and move on? I'm gonna read it again. How do we get African American people to go to therapy when we have been taught or raised to either hold it and move on?
When it comes to therapy, we see therapy as a bad thing. Therapy, for whatever reason, has been associated with bad. You've done something bad, you got to go to therapy. Therapy is actually back to that self-care. So my husband and I, we started going to therapy because even on the tail of that last question that you just asked, being Superwoman and Clark Kent. So one of the things that I could not communicate, I was struggling to communicate, was all the things that I felt like I was doing. All this list of things. And when you ask him to list out all the things that he did, his list was like up here, and my list was all the way down here. But one of the things that the therapist helped for us to do was she recommunicated it. She helped us to basically we were saying the same thing she said, but sometimes it helps to have that person, that middleman, not your friends, not his friends, but it helps to have a mutual party to help explain how it is that you feel. So when you talk about the African American community, I think that, first of all, being open about it. I go to therapy, and I have no problem saying that I go to therapy. It actually helps. I actually look forward to seeing her because I see a therapist as a person who is there to help me get better. And honestly, they're a trained person to help me get better, to give me advice, healthy advice. So I think that our community has been taught that therapy is bad. However, that's why we still stuck in the same problems, because we want to follow tradition, so breaking tradition.
I think that there's a stigma in our community, though, that we don't necessarily feel safe with telling people our business because we will be labeled. Once we get past the fear of being labeled, that's when we can actually see a therapist for who he or she is, right? They're there to take away the bias. They're there to not judge you. They're there to just hear specifically what you're walking through and to walk through it with you, not to judge you, not to make you feel unsafe. But when we take away that stigma that we're not crazy because we're going to talk about somebody about what we're feeling, then that's when we can start to feel safe. Our community doesn't feel safe, and it does go back to tradition. It does go back to over-spiritualizing everything. I'm just going to pray about it. Well, but you are having delusional thoughts, and you are having some paranoias, and you are having high anxiety. That's not something that you can carry by yourself, and I said this in my session. God put nurses and doctors, therapists in the earth for a reason, not for us to be scared of it, but for us to see that as a community to guide us through turbulent times. We are in some of the worst of times, and it's only going to get worse if we study the Bible. It's only going to get worse. And so we need to lean in on the people that God has given us and take that fear away. Do your research. Ask questions. I love recommendations. When I'm looking for a doctor for Harper or for myself, the first thing I do is go and ask people, who do you recommend? Go to people, ask them, have you had a good experience with such and such? I've sent a lot of people to Brittany because I know her personally. I know her heart. So when you know people, you are open to like recommend those people to them and share. I'm gonna tell y'all this, don't gatekeep on me, okay? Y'all blocking my money. I have had people that said, girl, I love you, but I ain't sharing you with nobody. Share me, okay? Because I am here to help you. No, but all jokes aside, like be open to share if you've had a good experience with a therapist to help people take away that fear and let go of that stigma.
I definitely think over-spiritualize it is the answer. And I applaud Evangelistic Center because of this type of setting. A lot of us don't have exposure to this. Our jobs don't offer it, right? Or we don't know very many people because they don't talk about it that are in therapy where they can share this information with us. Definitely over-spiritualize it. So here's the thing for me. So therapists like Brittany, and I even talked to her earlier during breakfast about it, and the field that she's in, you know, working with Jackson County, and the things that she sees, and even with my sister here, make them experts in this field. Now, this is not their spiritual gift, but it's something that they can bring into the church, right? You have ideas, you have knowledge, right? Bring it into the church. Share those ideas with your leaders, with pastors, or create venues, right? To bring these types of things into the church to expose, you know, African American people or just people in general. The benefits of mental health, of having mental health and being in therapy and being able to share your feelings about it. For Black people, specifically, you put it in church, they'll come, right? They'll at least hear you, right? It's not any different than politics, right? We want to elect a congressman or something, we bring him in the church, let him make a statement. That's the same thing to me. Over-spiritualize it, therapist. Expose us to it more and more. Talk about it with us in group settings. If you teach Sunday schools, share it there. Wherever your gift is in the body of Christ, share this, your gift out in the world, share this with us as well. Over-spiritualize it.
And can I just add, it does not make you weak. Somebody just sent me a message and said because the community makes you feel like you're not strong if you decide to go to therapy. It does not make you crazy. It does not make you weak if you decide to seek help. You are strong actually for saying, I need help. Being honest with yourself first. I tell people all this time, you can lie to everybody else, but you can't lie to yourself, right? Because you know what you're dealing with, and you know how heavy that weight is to carry.
I would say that, you know, we are multifaceted people. We have various experiences. We deal with life and all kind of difficulties. Do not limit yourself to one level of healing. Allow yourself to be open to finding resolutions outside of just one way, going to church and exploring that spiritually, which I think is why we have this vast level of topics. We have different things from a holistic perspective. So we're looking to address the physical, the mental, the emotional, all parts of you, that holistic care. Going to therapy helps address that emotional, mental well-being, but that doesn't mean that you have to give up spirituality. That doesn't mean that you have to compromise your physical health. This all works together to help us become and grow into the persons that we need to be.
We have 2 more questions left. Here we go. If you're financially successful, how do you ensure your husband doesn't get jealous or feel bad that he might not be doing well professionally right now? I'll ask it again. If you're financially successful, how do you ensure your husband doesn't get jealous or feel bad that he might not be doing well professionally right now?
So one of the things, my husband founded our firm, and I was behind the scenes, and I had no problem being behind the scenes. I do well, like encouraging other people to find their successor to go for it. But there was a shift in our business, and the shift was God called me to the front. And when I say to be the front, not that I'm leading my husband, but I became the face of the company. And there was, if I'm being honest, what it felt like to me, that there was a struggle. And when I say that there was a struggle, I didn't know if I was creating this or I didn't know if it was truly there. It would feel like when I had moments that I was excited and happy, I didn't necessarily want to go run in his office and say, hey, this is what just happened, because I knew that he might not have had as good a week. And so I began to shrink myself. But as I started to shrink myself, it started to create a problem. And I started the feelings of, well, do you feel like this towards me? Or should I not be this? I started to question myself. And the advice that I would give, the thing that changed that was I communicated with my husband. I shared my feelings. I shared how I was starting to feel. And I didn't do it in a space of vulnerability. I was vulnerable, of course, but I didn't do it in a tense space, let me say that, where it was an argument. And I said, well, I feel like you're jealous of me anyway. I didn't do that. I waited till it was a safe space to all guards were down, and I shared my heart with him. And come to find out, there were some feelings of, well, I feel like this, and we were able to overcome that. But I see a lot of women who will, because as women, we've been made to choose between career and family. And a man can go to work, fly out of town, be gone for a month, we hold it down, and that's okay, that's the norm. But when we do it, then all of a sudden the family's gonna fall apart, we're not good mothers, and all these other long lists of things that we gotta figure out. And I think that that's an unfair balance, but that's what the picture society is painted. So for me, I own my space. And when I say I own my space, I realize that I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm doing this for the betterment of the family. And so if I don't do this, then I can step back. And if that's what you want, that's fine. But financially, that's going to add more on your plate. So I think the communication, sharing how you're feeling, but never, ever, ever, ever suppress yourself. Don't ever shrink yourself, because that's not just with husbands. That's with family too. Yeah. That we fall into the space of, I can't do too well because I don't want everybody to think. No, you maximize the gift that God has given you in the space that he has given it to you. And then through communication, I believe that it can work itself out as it did in my own situation.
It sounds like the person asking the question may be the breadwinner, is what it sounds like, and that she is dealing with a husband that may have some insecurities about that. So my suggestion would be, there's a relational side to your marriage, there's a business side to your marriage, and there is no competition in love. So have a business meeting with your partner, because that is your team. Sit them down and talk openly about the finances, and ask deep questions. Have those hard conversations, because that is where you grow. Seasons will change. There will be times when you're up financially and your husband's down, and vice versa. It's never just a one way, and it's okay. But make him feel safe enough to understand that there is no competition and there is no reason to be insecure. And if there is something that he's struggling with, then maybe it's best to bring a third party in and have you to talk through those struggles, right? Because it sounds like he's dealing with something that's causing him to be insecure about the finances. Money is one of the biggest stressors that I have when I have couples in my office to talk about. It's one of the main things that breaks couples up, because they're afraid to talk about it because there's a deficit in something happening. So have those hard conversations. Treat it like a business, because it is, right? And bring your partner in and say, let's talk about our finances. Let's talk about where we are with our money, and so that he can feel safe enough with you that he does not see you as a competition, but actually see you as his partner, in the sense of, if you up, we up together. If we down together, because this is our money. It's not just mine and not just yours.
Last question. How do you get help when no one is there to help and you have to do what you have to do? How do you get help when no one is there to help and you have to do what you have to do?
Well, I think I would start by saying there's always someone there. And I think I'm going to answer this from the perspective of a single mom. So I've been a single mom almost my whole life. And so I feel like the person that asked that question feels alone right now. And there are many times in your journey that you will feel alone. But sometimes that feeling is brought on to ourselves. Because if you really take the time to look around, there's always somewhere to get help, right? So who is it that you're afraid to reach out to? Who is it that you're not willing to be vulnerable with? Because sometimes we will choose not being vulnerable over having help. So I think you need to ask yourself, is there really help there and I just need to be more vulnerable, or is there truly not help there? Because even when you take it to the Bible, God's always there, right? And God tells us that he's the only one that we need. So maybe it's that you're in a season where he wants you to know that he is all that you need, right? So there's multifaceted sides to that. But I would say, one, make sure that you are taking time to be in a quiet space and hear God, because maybe he's calling you to spend some time just you and him, and allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to reach out to the people that are beside you that you might think don't want to help you, because maybe they would help you and you just haven't reached out yet.
Yeah, I think it goes into the vulnerability piece. A lot of times the help is there. It's just removing that pride. You know, we don't want to acknowledge that. But a lot of times it can be difficult to have to ask for help in any way. And kind of like Tanisha was saying, you know, you ask once and that's it. But you have to learn how to kind of let that go. And maybe it's not you asking for help for big things. Just start small. And I think that's the practicality of it, starting small. Maybe it's just, what does it feel like to even ask this group of people for help? Because maybe I'm the one who shut the door and think that they're not going to be willing to help. And then you find out I ask for help and they are willing to help me with these small tasks. So now I can ask for a little bit more next time, or start being more vulnerable about what I actually need and where I need that help, or asking people, do you know where this support is, or is there a place in the community, or where is this resource at? So sometimes it's just being able to ask for the help, and a lot of that starts with, again, that vulnerability piece.
I'm going to go on the other side of that question, because I think sometimes we have to be honest, because sometimes we hinder the help, or sometimes we don't do right. Because, again, we can say there's always somebody there, but when they were there, what did you do with them? Because we can be manipulative. We can have ill motives. So I think sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves and say, okay, what did I do with the help that was made available to me? When you said you needed $50 to pay your lights, did you pay your lights, or did you do something else? See, you gotta always be honest and be real before that woe is me, and I don't have anybody. Well, where did they go? What happened? You always gotta get to the root of it, right? Right. So that's all the questions. I'm gonna turn it over to Lady Robinson.
All right. Was that not a great panel discussion? Did you guys get some things answered that were lingering in your mind, or questions that someone else asked but you were wanting to ask because, like, I was thinking it but you said it type of situation? I know for me, I did. Thank you, ladies, from the bottom of my heart for joining us during this panel discussion. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your efforts. Let's give our panelists a round of applause, please. They did an amazing job. Now, we do have information for all 5 of these ladies available for you. They're not only on the, if you go to Evangelistic Center's Facebook page, you'll be able to see their, it's in light blue. You'll be able to see their hashtag handles or their IG handles, their Facebook information, so that you can connect with them to get a little bit more information so they can help guide you through this process called life. We want you to be empowered to do everything that God has called called you to be and to do with grace and with dignity, and in all that getting understanding. So allow these women to help you have an understanding as to what your gift is and how you should use it, being an empowered woman. Amen?